I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media. I'm joined today by Joe Allen, and Joe is an author. He has written an extensive tome called Dark Aeon, Transhumanism, the War Against Humanity, and he is also the Transhumanism, not ism, editor on Steve Bannon's War Room. Welcome, Joe. How are you doing today?
Rick, I'm just fine. How are you?
Not bad, thanks. Big topic, this one. And before you came on, you and I have talked several times over the last few years. And sometimes when we had our conversations, you would lump things in together. So we could have talked about digital identity, artificial intelligence, the rise of transhumanism, CBDCs, all that sort of business. Sometimes you could fit it all under one umbrella. It seems to me, at least, especially even over the last month or two, it's very difficult to talk about those things collectively because they're growing and blossoming so much in and of themselves that you really need to devote an entire conversation, for example, to artificial intelligence, an entire conversation to the push towards digital identity or CBDCs. It's not so easy to lump them all into one user-friendly topic of conversation anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all of it is technology, and the impact that it's having is so deep that, and all of them are so interconnected. Yeah, I don't know, Rick. I don't want to start off by arguing, but I think that they all do really run hand in hand. It is, well.
Well, I suppose let me clarify. Yeah. What I meant by that is, we did always discuss them under this banner of technology, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is they've accelerated the depths that all those topics and fields have, not sank to. But the conversation, for example, that you would have around artificial intelligence now is arguably a much deeper, more nuanced conversation you would have had 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. Yes, now, in and of itself, that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yes. If you mean that there is more to mine, yeah, absolutely. With any one of those topics you just mentioned, the advances in technology mean that not only is it having a deeper impact on human beings now, whether it's the psychological image of a brain implant or some sort of non-invasive interface, or the impact of artificial intelligence. People are interacting with these things all the time now. But beyond that, the technology itself, I think there is perhaps more reason to kind of drill down into any one of them as opposed to seeing them as a whole, if that's what you mean. Yeah. So you've got my agreement for now.
Okay, so we're still friends. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
For now.
Okay. Well, let's pick one of them today because we don't have the time to go into all of them. One area in particular, this business of AI or artificial intelligence, it's very hard to escape it these days. The way it's being marketed, the way it's being integrated into society in general, and the way it's being written about, or people's consciousness of it, is infinitely more now than it was even a year or two ago. Okay. So in Ireland, for example, there's a publication now called AIireland.ie. And what it was looking at was last year was a big year for AI in Ireland. And this year, 2025, looks set to continue on the heels of that. And of course, with the new Trump administration coming in and the Stargate project, you write about it, you reference things called sand gods. We're going to get into what they are now. And with the amount of tech basing in Ireland for American firms, I wanted to look at maybe what some of these implications for AI are going forward into 2025 for Ireland. So, for example, this article here references a platform called NVIDIA, unstoppable growth in AI hardware. Talks about it's now emerged as an undisputed leader in AI computing, generating 75% more revenue than both Intel and AMD combined in Q3 of 2024. Early bets on accelerated computing paid off handsomely, reinforcing its dominance in the AI tech sector. And the implication for Ireland, for example, is where AI's development is growing rapidly, their hardware leadership provides opportunities for researchers and businesses to leverage cutting-edge computing power for AI advances. So in other words, it's saying that, they could tap into Ireland's talent pool when it comes to this. But the problem with that is a lot of Ireland's talent pool when it comes to this is actually people coming from overseas to live here and work for these American corporations in Dublin, for example, being paid very high amounts of money. So would it be fair to say, or possibly, that if they were to relocate from where they are at the minute, which is something Trump is toying with the idea of, bringing great American businesses back home to America again with incentives, hitting people with tariffs, well then what looks like could be a golden goose that laid the golden egg for Ireland next year could be slaughtered if they decide to up sticks and move the operation away.
Maybe. I think that's an open question, but especially with the startups that might actually be a really big deal. But Ireland has become very much a hub for technology, and all of the relationships that you have settled into the country are not likely to get ripped apart immediately. I read a statistic the other day that really stunned me. I just didn't have any idea that some 20% of the electricity in Ireland, actually just a bit more, is used to power data centers for Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, various other companies. I suspect that deals will be brokered to keep the tech in Ireland by and large. They won't turn the data centers into warehouses anytime soon, I don't think. But you never know. This election will shake up a lot of things, and I would be very hesitant to predict exactly how that's going to pan out. There's certain things, certain momentum that you could point to say, yeah, this is probably going to continue or not. Just for instance, you had mentioned NVIDIA, right? They're everywhere. The development of NVIDIA's graphic processing units, the GPUs, basically took them from a fairly obscure hardware company to one of the biggest companies in the world. If I had been smart, I would have just invested in them as I was slagging on the damage that their technology will ultimately do. But that momentum, I think, will continue. See the stock prices go up and down. But due to the Trump presidency, I think that, in my opinion, on that one point, unfortunately, you're going to see these tech companies. I don't see them coming, the startups all coming to America to enjoy our tax system or any of that, or to get around the tariffs or any of that. I just don't see it.
I don't think it'll be a
Maybe again, I'm no economic analyst. That's any prediction I make insofar as what the business decisions will be, you can pretty much bank on the opposite.
Yeah. Well, I had a conversation earlier on today with another chap, and we were thinking about the same sort of thing. So if you take, there's roughly 1,000 companies have European bases in Ireland, bigger companies like Apple, like Twitter, Amazon, whatever. Even if half of those, not even a cataclysmic event like, the plugs are pulled, the data centers turn into warehouses, everybody up sticks and goes to America. Ireland is so dependent on inward investment from outside companies, most of which are American type companies, that even, half of them, even if 20% of them decided to move elsewhere, it will have a massive effect on us because we're such a small island. So few people living here. It doesn't take everyone to up sticks and leave, but there's always that possibility that even a small change in the makeup of the amount of these companies here could have a knock-on effect. And in talking about job creation, actually, one of the things that's came up here, the first time I've seen it mentioned, is the rise of the chief AI officers. You've chief finance officer.
That stuck out to me.
That's an interesting one. So it's called a CAIO, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. Last year saw the new role emerge in corporate boardrooms, and major companies like Eli Lilly, Morgan Stanley appointed CAIOs to lead AI strategies. So, you've got DEI officers, you've got compliance officers, chief financial officers. Now, for the first time, again, this is something maybe that wouldn't have been discussed last year, even the fact that a company would appoint a chief AI officer. Now that's being advised. Irish companies should consider similar roles to ensure AI adoption aligns with corporate strategy, regulatory frameworks, particularly as the EU AI Act introduces stricter compliance standards. So more compliance means more paperwork. Laborious jobs could be nicely tidied up by AI. Get yourself a chief AI officer in there and everything's hunky-dory. So maybe that's a job that would never have been looked at this time last year, 2 years ago, but now it's being advised.
Yeah, no, they practically didn't exist, but this is one, I guess, business sector prediction that I am fairly confident on. So you can take this one to the bank. And in fact, if you're looking for a new job, maybe look into becoming one of these CAIOs, because I'm talking to people all over the place in both the government and education, in various companies. All of them, with some exceptions, but for the most part, all of them are talking about how AI is being integrated into their business or school or agency. So in order to do that, you're going to have somebody who's able to choose what's the best model to use for this purpose, or how do you keep the AI from gathering and hoovering up data, or the data being breached, all these sorts of cybersecurity issues. That's you need an expert around for it, right? Now, from a business angle, okay, this is all good, right? AI is going to increase efficiency. AI is going to increase the productivity of any given worker. AI is going to give insights into this, that, or the other field or economic issue that is going to push the company forward. AI is good, right? That's the sort of narrative we're being fed. It's almost like a new little buddy that you're going to bring along with you in your journey through life. But I mean, myself, as you well know, I take a pretty dismal view of all of this. I think that even if there are up and downsides to this technology, like there are with pretty much anything in life, the recklessness with which these technologies are being rolled out and embraced, and the sort of naivety in the embrace of these technologies, I think it's setting us up for a lot of really bad problems. The first being the increased normalization of surveillance, of constant surveillance. One of the more popular AIs, as you know, OpenAI's ChatGPT, and various spin-offs from that. You now have the operator system that's come out that can basically go in to it came out yesterday. It can go in and take over your computer and basically work your computer for you. Well, one of the ways that this AI or model knows how or what your preferences are, what it should do, aside from you telling it what to do, prompting it, is that these systems are being developed with the intention of knowing everything about what's on your computer, and also being able to identify certain elements of your personality, right? Like, if you wouldn't even consider, unless you're a weirdo, having some company, you're going to hire a company to advise you, right? And this advisor is not going to show up at the office, just show up at the office. He's going to come to your house. He's going to watch everything that you do. As you sleep, he's going to monitor your various physiological systems. He's going to monitor your breath. He's going to monitor how many erections you get at night, whatever it is. It's
If any.
This purpose behind the philosophy behind OpenAI and Microsoft and many of these other companies who are less outspoken about it is to basically create a symbiote, a sort of mind that is melding with you. And so you imagine this agent or whatever, this strange kind of hairless alien looking dude who's been following you around everywhere, monitoring your behavior, monitoring everything you say, trying to infer how you feel, all of this. Then slowly but surely, this person is going to kind of merge with you, right? Become a sort of tumor growing off of you that speaks for you. And that's really how I see this. I mean, I get the benefits and all that. I can understand why companies would want to be in a hurry to integrate it, especially because it's such a it's such a lucrative buzzword. This is powered by AI, so everybody's like, oh, I like that. I like the AI, and so the company wants to have it in there. At the same time, the surveillance element, whether it's your company or I think more importantly you as a person, this is to me quite nightmarish, and it's also really alarming the degree to which people have come to accept it. I mean, for 25 years, we've come to accept a certain degree of surveillance on the streets and on the internet and various other avenues of life. So perhaps that goes a long way to explaining why people are so accepting of it now. But it's gotten to the degree, and when you have Sam Altman or you have Mustafa Suleiman from Microsoft AI coming out of Google, openly talking about how the purpose of having an AI agent there with you to do your task for you, the purpose is for it to know everything that you're saying, everything that you're doing, every phone call, encouraging you to kind of put your life into this thing so it can behave and act appropriately on your behalf. No one would have accepted it 5 years ago. And in fact, I would say 2 years ago, especially at
Yeah.
the height of the COVID thing, people would have said, this is abhorrent. This is horrible. What I'm watching as it's unfolding, as you say, now we're talking about chief AI officers at your
Mhm.
company. I see it as a profoundly negative thing ultimately going forward, but I'm also not an investor, so maybe I would be saying something differently if I had money on the line.
Well, you don't, and they say follow the money, but at least you're able to provide an unbiased. You're just looking at this from the outside, and you don't have any skin in the AI game. You're simply an observer of it and a scholar of it, and you're putting forward what you see and what your opinions are. But this business of it's almost a necessity now. Another part of this article here addressing Irish businesses, for example, it says they're well positioned to benefit from the trends in AI, provided. So there's a provision in there, provided they invest in AI talent, ethical frameworks, and regulatory compliance. As AI continues to evolve, the opportunities for growth, efficiency, and innovation will only expand. So, by inference, then, that if you don't invest in AI, well, then you're done. Basically, you won't be keeping up with the pack. You won't be following the trends. You won't be following the money. You won't be profitable, and your business will be game over. Look at the way it's written. Provided you invest in AI talent and frameworks, growth, efficiency, and innovation will expand. So the reverse of that, I assume, is what they're trying to say is if you don't, you're going to get left behind and you're going to shrivel up and die.
Yeah, what's ironic about that is at the same time, all of these major AI labs, be it Google or Anthropic or OpenAI or even Meta, Jan LeCun from the chief AI scientist at Meta is probably the most hesitant to make dramatic predictions as to where it's going. But outside of him, Elon Musk is also included in this. They're basically all saying that within the next 5 years, some of them are saying within the next 1 to 2 years, you're going to have PhD level artificial general intelligence, something that approaches artificial general intelligence. So while right now these companies are part of an ecosystem where the messaging is if you either sink or swim, right? And the only way to swim is to put these AI floaties on yourself, otherwise you're done for. They're also either openly saying or implying that as this progresses and as their AIs become more and more sophisticated, you're going to get replaced anyway. Maybe not you as the owner of the company, and maybe not you as the CEO and a few others to kind of babysit these AIs. But the vision they have, at least again, coming out of the major labs, is that you're going to have something that reduces the value of human intellectual prowess, right? It's going to reduce any sort of need for an expert to be on board for whatever it is you choose it, right? Shipping or supply chains or customer service or sales, whatever it is, or just the subject matter you're working with, chemists, or biologists, or even like construction, architecture, all of that. Now, I'm fairly skeptical as to how excellent these models really will become. But the fact of the matter is, these people are either cynical enough, sadistic enough, insensitive, whatever it is, that they're openly talking about the greater replacement, that these technologies will enhance for now, but ultimately replace you, or at the very least, the only people that will basically be able to survive in the business world or in academia or in government
Hmm.
or certainly militarily are those who have become symbiotic with the technology.
Yeah.
Uh, you might say the same happened with the car. You might say the same happened to the phone. Yeah, to some extent. But your car wasn't trying to understand what motivates your passions in life.
Yeah. Uh, Also noteworthy this week, Donald Trump obviously was inaugurated on Monday, the 20th of January, just a few days ago. And he gave a speech, and obviously a lot of people are very happy to see him back in the White House again. He's, as you've commented, I've been following your commentary on this. There's some things most certainly to be commended on. So, for example, his stance on the border, his border stance with the Mexican border, reintroducing common sense. There are only two genders, not 75 different genders. I saw today that he's booting all the identifying men identifying as women out of women's prisons in America, going to move them back into the male penitentiaries. That'll be fun for them. And as well as that, scrapping DEI business, all sorts of positive things like that. But also, interestingly, again, with a presidential speech, and I did catch most of it, he was talking about planting American flags on Mars. Elon Musk was almost euphorically apoplectic beside himself with enjoyment and glee when he heard that. He talked about the introduction of a $500 billion investment into a Stargate system as well. And I get that he's talking big, he's a big talker. But again, could you have foreseen 4 years ago, 8 years ago, that a president in his speech, in his inauguration speech, would be referencing so heavily technology, going to Mars, and let alone going to the moon, but going to Mars, planting an American flag on Mars, things like that? There was a very tech heavy element to that inauguration speech, and he hasn't wasted any time unveiling what that might look like with this Stargate project, which is something that you've written about in your latest Substack article. And by the way, check the description box below this video. There'll be a link through there to where you can have a look at or purchase a copy of Joe's book, Dark Aeon, and also check out his writings on Substack as well. Fantastic source of information on this particular topic. So let's look at this Stargate business for now. You put the article up just yesterday, I think it was, or the 23rd. The Stargate is open. And then it had a rather strange subheading, Enter the Sand Gods. What's all that about?
This, I mean, I've covered this shift among the conservatives and certainly with Trump himself towards embracing these technologies rather than seeing them, looking at them with a suspicious eye. And I certainly have followed all of the relationship between Trump and Musk, and I would say there's a good argument to be made that Musk, who put $250 million ultimately, or SpaceX, $250 million into the Trump campaign, that Musk in many ways carried him across the finish line in the election. I'm not saying that he wouldn't have won without him, but it made an enormous impact.
Yeah.
And the impact of X, Twitter, or formerly Twitter, I think that had an enormous impact, because even though it's billed as a free speech platform, it is in some ways, but the way the algorithms work, from my experience with it, is that he's Musk himself and people around him are actively pumping certain influencers in certain types of content. The thumb is on the scale, so to speak, to shift it towards the Trump, the MAGA movement, and criticism of the left. And those are all things that I'm all for, right? But you have to be realistic about what's happening. It's not purely organic. And so it's no surprise to me that Trump would embrace something like the Stargate project. It's a data center complex, and maybe complexes all over the country, but for right now, Abilene, Texas, a data center complex that'll serve Microsoft, OpenAI, NVIDIA, and of course Oracle's involved. You're going to have, I think, these sorts of operations spring up all over the place. But for right now, the big players are people like Larry Ellison from Microsoft and, of course, Sam Altman from OpenAI. So anyway, it doesn't surprise me that Trump, who is by and large kind of a technophobic person, I know people who are around him, they generally say that he is averse to all that. He's not a smartphone guy, right? All these sorts of things are delegated to people around him. He still like clips newspapers like in the old days, and keeps the paper articles. He's not some sort of technophile, but he knows money and he knows business, and he sees that this is going to be the next boom, even if it becomes a bust. What stunned me was that on day 2 of his administration, the first full day of his administration, everybody is waiting to see what he's going to say at the press conference. And he comes out with Larry Ellison from Oracle, comes out with Masayoshi Son from SoftBank, and Sam Altman from OpenAI. And they announce this Stargate project. I definitely would not have anticipated that. And it surprises me too, because of people like Sam Altman being historically so anti-Trump. After writing the article, after thinking about it, and after speaking to some people, it makes a bit more sense, I suppose, from a business angle, but from on a symbolic level, it's profoundly disturbing to me. You've got what I consider to be like one of the most dehumanizing and anti-human technologies that has ever been developed. Artificial intelligence, whatever you want to call it, neural networks, whatever word you like to put on it. And the intention behind it is nightmarish. And so here you have Trump. Trump is not putting federal money into this, but he's using the platform as president to signal to other countries, to signal to Americans, to signal to investors that this is a good thing, that this is a positive thing. I'm frankly a bit disappointed by it, and I really do worry that not necessarily due to policy, because the governments aren't probably not going to do much about this. It's probably going to be more decisions made on institutional levels and individual levels that really decide where artificial intelligence goes. But by signaling that to the MAGA base, who by and large are kind of disturbed by the development of artificial intelligence, and certainly disturbed by what Larry Ellison was talking about with I know this is going on YouTube, but with the new medical technologies that I won't say too much about it knowing where we're at, but the new medical technologies that involve a lot of genetic engineering. It's a very strange thing. It was very much a slap in the face to many in the populist base. And from my perspective, I think in the long term, not necessarily for economic reasons, not necessarily for political or military reasons, but from a deep spiritual standpoint, what we're seeing is profoundly blasphemous. These people want to create and believe that they are capable of creating a God that they believe never existed. And you might say, okay, well, they can't do that. Okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, you get no disagreement from me on that. But we know from history that if you build a big enough statue, you can have many thousands or even millions kneel down to it. You might not be able to replace the highest power in the universe with an algorithm, but what you absolutely can do is put the algorithm as a symbol into that God-shaped hole in people's hearts,
Hmm.
and they will embrace it. And that's already happening. I mean, one of the things I write about a lot is the kind of cult-like or religious, sometimes implicitly, oftentimes explicitly religious sentiments behind artificial intelligence. And for Trump to signal that to the world, and especially to signal that to Heartland America, yeah, I'm bothered by it, and I hope that that can be steered in a different direction. It's only day 5 of the administration. Who knows what sorts of decisions will come out of the White House?
Yeah, that's true. Only day 5, but you rightly pointed out in this article that you've written for Substack that it was on the second day that this Stargate project was unraveled and or unveiled, not unraveled, unveiled. I suppose you could say it was a bit of a counterbalance to the positivity about the borders and about the DEI and about the common sense when it comes to genders and various other good things that have been announced since the beginning of Trump's presidency. This is a little bit of a fly in the ointment, and I want to read just the opening paragraph to this piece that you've written as well, because I think it sums up what I believe is the real position. Because when you mention AI and you mention the future, people have these visions of Terminator, skulls on the ground and machines going over and hunter killers and laser beams coming down, and we all live in holes like rats and rodents. Maybe it will turn out that way. I don't think it's going to go that far. But what you say is, quoting you here, people fear AI for all sorts of reasons. To you, Joe Allen, it's not a matter of fear as much as profound disdain. I don't foresee AI itself going rogue and killing everyone. I see human beings using AI to destroy cultural heritage and spiritual connection. Such technologies are paving a road to dehumanization and a greater replacement. Developers justify this transformation as necessary due an AI arms race that they've created. So, I mean, I can't look around me and think that society's going the right way. Can't think that we're going the right way as a people, and I can't think that technology that's running alongside this is doing anything to make things better in that respect. I'm not against technology. I'm using it right now. The people that are listening to this chat that we're having will be listening to it on technology. But it's this business of the dehumanization, the breakdown of spiritual connections between people, all this push towards Stargate and the huge amounts of money that are being thrown into it. I just can't see it. Just me being me, I just can't see it benefiting us as humans. Certainly, it might be good for people's balance sheets and their bank accounts and transactional efficiencies. But in terms of what makes us people, it's not so good.
If there were no upsides, the downsides wouldn't be a concern. And I think the sorts of promises Ellison was making about cures for cancer, it's not completely empty. That's way overblown, most likely. One would hope that they could do it, but it's not completely empty. There are some positive uses for these technologies, and maybe there will be increasing positive uses for them. I think that the last 4 years have shown us that in biotech, and I'm going to be very vague here, but in biotech, that the reckless rollout of certain technologies can have horrific damage.
Mm-hmm.
And the more these corporations are protected, then there's no accountability, no liability whatsoever. Their profits go up. Other numbers go up that are not talked about. And there's a really big problem. And it's a very tangible problem. Another one that we can talk about is opiates. And I think that AI, again, as you had said there about the Terminator robots and all that, yeah, maybe on down the road we face something like that. For right now, I'm certainly not worried about Optimus, the robot,
Yeah.
coming and kicking in my door and dragging me away. What I do see, though, is that these, in a much more subtle fashion, that these technologies are, I would say, more similar to opiates. Human beings have natural endorphin receptors. Human beings naturally crave pleasure and relief. We're naturally averse to pain, right? That's part of who we are biologically. And so we're prone to certain things. We're prone to enjoying opium and in its distilled form, things like OxyContin or fentanyl, things like that. It just becomes increasingly available, increasingly normalized, and increasingly dangerous, not only in terms of potency, but also just in terms of the actual physical damage that it's doing. So, in the same way, human beings that we crave knowledge, we crave light, right? Like this is part of this is just the human craving, biological and psychological craving for light. We crave conversation. We crave to be listened to. We want to hear from other people and relate to them. All these sorts of things. Well, AI functions in many ways like an opiate in that sense, right? Just in the same way that OxyContin or any other opiate will slide into that natural God-made endorphin receptor, so do these algorithms, at least for certain people who are more prone to it. And the number is much larger than I would have liked, but maybe smaller than I would have feared. The ChatGPT, Grok, as this moves along, already it's a kind of personality. It's almost like another person, an ensouled entity that people are interacting with. But as it moves along, you're going to see more and more people who rely on these technologies for companionship more than they do other human beings. In the same way you saw the shift of actual social life move online for huge numbers of people, to the point that for some people that's the primary way they communicate with other people. Now that we're acculturated to these platforms, you have non-human entities who are satisfying that social craving or satisfying the desire for knowledge. And, to cap that off, just to say, without going on and on about this, the real issue that I see with the development of these artificial algorithmic companions, the normalization of interacting with them, giving them access to your life, giving them access to your inner self, and coming to trust them, is that if these systems get anywhere even close to the AGI level that people like Dario Amodei at Anthropic is talking about, or Sam Altman is talking about, or Elon Musk is talking about, to the point that they are smarter than most people on most things, or in their dreams, smarter than all people in all things. Whatever approximation reality actually hits in there, these systems then become an authority beyond what I believe is the better path in which we trust each other as human beings, or we trust a human being who is accountable and relating to us as an authority as to what is real, as to what is right, as to what is good. AIs already are in the position of authority as to what is real, and more what is right, like what is legal, but also what is morally correct. There are plenty of people right now who will go and talk to their chatbot about some sort of ethical dilemma that they're in, and the chatbot will respond. As this increases, you're going to get something beyond human AI symbiosis. It really does become something like a guardian angel that you're relying on to keep you morally correct, safe, to keep you in contact with reality. And these, whether you want to call them transhumanists or posthumanists or whatever label you want to slap onto it, they are positioning it in that way as something that's religious in nature. They look at the religions of the past and they say, oh, all of those were just fantasies. All those were just cartoon characters. This is something real. This is actual divinity because it's tangible. I could foresee maybe not, some sort of new world order complex pushing this down on us, but, from society to society and place to place, I could certainly see a critical mass of people who look to these as the highest authority, and whoever is in control of them, whoever's wielding it, will have more power than any pharaoh, than any Roman emperor, than any pope has ever had. And whether that's good or bad, I guess is up to each individual to decide. But if you think it's bad, it's going to be real bad.
Yeah, I suppose another thing I wanted to ask you was, at the start of the conversation when I said, we've been talking for a few years, you and I, you can see that there's a lot more depth now to plumb into with these topics. For example, AI, transhumanism, the advent or the push for digital IDs. It's getting deeper and deeper. The fact that Trump, for example, on day two, wheels out Altman, Larry Ellison, they're there. He's talking about Stargate on the second day. He's talking about planting flags on Mars. Crazy stuff that you wouldn't have foreseen a presidential address maybe having. Well, certainly not 4 years ago. Even the advent of the chief AI officer, that was an eyebrow raiser. That's not something that would have been in the company lexicon of, job titles this time a year ago, 2 years ago, but it's there now. The speed of development of this, I feel it's certainly not going to slow down. I believe it's got a huge amount of momentum behind it now. And the old analogy, of a snowball rolling down a hill, at the start it's small, it gets bigger, it's not moving so fast, but by the end it's this huge thing that's just getting momentum, and it's growing bigger and bigger and bigger until it gets to the bottom. That's the way I envision this happening, because from someone that doesn't pay a huge amount of attention to the tech side of things, when I want to talk about it, I'll talk to somebody that does immerse themselves in it, like yourself. I'm seeing massive developments, and the fact that more people are talking about this now and they're rolling out these huge $500 billion projects in this now, it's not going to slow down. And it's not going to, this reach isn't going to be shortened over the, the short to medium term. I think it's going to go fast and it's going to go hard. And I don't want to say it's going to catch a lot of people off guard, but it could get to the point like the snowball, you can control it when it's a little thing and it's not moving so fast. But when that sucker gets big and builds up a lot of momentum behind it, and it's going down a slope at a rate of knots, it can be hard to put the brakes on this. Could it get to the point where it's completely out of control in the short term?
Out of our control for sure. I mean, the way these guys talk, especially the AI safety people, they talk about AI in terms of its own kind of separate entity, right? They really take the intelligence part of that phrase seriously as opposed to the artificial part. And you hear people like Eliezer Yudkowsky or Connor Leahy talking about, or Nick Bostrom talking about the takeoff of intelligence. Once the artificial systems begin to self-improve, that they would be able to completely escape certainly human understanding, but perhaps human control if they were not properly contained. As part of a public conversation, as part of a lot of private conversations behind doors. That is, again, I can imagine that, right? That's the Terminator scenario, or the Her scenario, or the Ex Machina scenario. In fact, I think Ex Machina might be one of the best films to describe that fear. And maybe, I don't know. Nobody knows, actually. People were predicting that would be 100 years from now. Now some people are saying one. So, futurism is not exactly an exact science. But one thing that I'm pretty confident about, seeing the introduction of various technologies just over the course of our lifetimes, right? Technological development is so rapid now that you and I can look back over our lives and see a moment when something that is completely ubiquitous didn't exist in our lives. The internet being one of the big ones, smartphones being another, brain interfaces being another. People say, oh, well, they've had that since the 70s. Yeah, they had, crude wires in people's, or in like cow brains, right? Or, probably in Nazi camps. But it's nothing remotely close to what they have with Neuralink. And I just simply don't buy that idea that, like, behind closed doors they've got secret AI that's 50 years ahead. If we had AI from 2000, like 2075 level AI,
Yeah.
they would have cured cancer. Ray Kurzweil wouldn't be old and senile. Biden wouldn't be old and senile, and the potholes would not be so terrible in the roads. Okay, but as far as it getting out of control, I'm not concerned about AI getting out of control of any human. I'm really concerned about AI getting out of our control, our being, people at this kind of normal economic level, the mid to lower socioeconomic level, not a whole lot of political sway and power, I think that it's the sort of technology for surveillance purposes, for psychological manipulation purposes, for just kind of overall subtle control. It's the sort of technology that really, really gives those human impulses power. And so, to the extent it's being imposed by corporations or by governments who don't have our best interests at heart, it's one of the most disturbing technological developments that one could ever imagine. And even worse, even like people who have good intentions. I know people who develop artificial intelligence. They have nothing but the best intentions and put all of these different ethical guidelines and guardrails in place around their technologies. But even people with the best intentions pushing this out into society might not take the unintended consequences that seriously, such as human AI dependency, in which a child or even an adult basically depends on this algorithm to sort out problems, to solve the problems for them, or to perform some sort of cognitive task, which invariably you can see it everywhere. You see it with Google, right? The Google brained people, the kind of doe eyes that can't get around their own cities without a map, without a digital map. It's going to get that much worse with artificial intelligence. So even if you're putting your AI out there in order to enlighten people, I think that effect, that sort of human atrophy, is going to get much, much worse, for at least for those who don't have the discipline or the wisdom to keep it in check. And it's again, it's sort of, is that out of your control? Maybe, maybe not. We do have the choice to accept it or to not accept it. But going back to the article that you just mentioned, in this sort of tone that if you don't adopt, then you're going to get left behind, is sort of implicitly forced upon you.
Yeah.
And you're not developing it. You're not going to be able to guide it as much as you think you will. It is kind of de facto out of your control. So in that sense, for most regular people, for the layman, AI is already out of control.
And not going, that situation is not going to change anytime soon. In fact, that the snowball effect is going to keep on going. And in fact, I was listening to you there talking about effectively as artificial intelligence grows, human intelligence, we get dumbed down. We become more dependent on it as it grows, and it's accumulates data. Look at Musk, for example. Whenever he bought Twitter, he made no bones about it. He said this is a stepping stone to developing the X app, the everything app. And of course, it's been rebranded as X. I don't believe it's reached its final incarnation of what it's supposed to be, but it's certainly moving that way. And no doubt it's just a huge data harvesting pool. Every interaction, every like, every comment, every retweet, every thought and imagination of everybody's heart is on there, feeding into a huge learning machine. And, I don't think I've become a more intelligent human being for the use of social media. And in fact, I can testify I'm dumber now than I have been in quite some time. My attention span is shot to bits. I find it difficult to concentrating on things, and difficult to turn myself away from the screen. So even on a personal level, I would say that as AI has grown, my own intelligence levels or attention spans have shrank, and it hasn't done me any favors whatsoever. And if it continues to grow and I continue along this path, I'll just be a drooling mess. Some people say I'm already at that point right now, but yeah, you see what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, yeah. There was a book that had a profound effect on me when it came out. It came out in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. Nicholas Carr's The Shallows, and it was still quite speculative at the time. But his contention, building on other researchers, he's a journalist. It was that our minds are becoming more and more shallow due to the internet, becoming Wikipedia brained, right?
Yep.
Where people know a little bit about everything, but
Yep.
almost, but very little about one thing. There's no depth. and there's no discipline. And so, many other writers have jumped in, and many other researchers have jumped in on this since. Now you have Jonathan Haidt, who, whatever you feel about his politics, makes a lot of great points about the negative effects of smartphones and digital technology on child development and on people in general. The scientific data goes deep, but you don't really need that. You just need common sense. Again, the Google brain person who pretty much needs a GPS in order to get down the block, that's becoming ever more common. And with social media, it is a double-edged sword. It would or YouTube, the great, let's not offend the Google gods who stand above YouTube, but you can learn. Right. You're the only person I'm going to confess this to, but I've spent a lot of time watching technical videos about artificial intelligence to really understand the nuts and bolts. And I've read about it. I've had experts tell me about it. I never really learned it as well as having someone talk about it with little cartoons and equations on screen that I could work with. So there's obviously upsides. You can, in some ways, increase intelligence using these technologies, or at least increase knowledge, and certainly as far as real-time news. But the big question has to be asked is, in that balance between the positives and negatives, where is the center of gravity, right? Like, is it, are you becoming like you're great with trivia and you know exactly when the breaking news, what the breaking news is, but you can't read a 100-page book. You can't think about your own life. You can't recite a poem. You can't sing a song. Like which is more valuable to you? Which part of yourself is being developed more? Again, my instinct is a Luddite because I think that's the most simple-minded way of approaching it. Technology bad, robot bad, smash it all up, get rid of it. That's a deep impulse, but it's not realistic. So every person has to figure out what that balance is and how deep they immerse themselves into any technology. Again, if anything remotely close to what Elon Musk, Dario Amodei of Anthropic, Demis Hassabis of Google's DeepMind, Sam Altman of OpenAI, Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, on and on and on. If anything remotely close to that level of artificial intelligence is in the near future, it's coming up in the near future, and let's just imagine that something exactly like what they're saying is going to happen, then what they are talking about is the creation of little g gods, sand gods, as it's called. It is, it's kind of a joke, but silicon chips made from sand gods. As Mark Andreessen said in his Techno-Optimist Manifesto, we are making the sand think. This is alchemy. We are making sand think. And they are promising that they're going to make the sand think at a level that no human being can. If they don't deliver on that, but deliver something that's convincing, that means that no matter what, people will look to this artificial, soulless mind as the highest authority on what is real, what is right, what is good. And if they do, for some reason, if they actually come through with it, unlike flying cars or cures for cancer or moon bases, and if you believe the moon even exists, right? No, I'm kidding. I don't want to screw up the algorithm by denying the moon exists. But if they make that breakthrough, then they will have an actual God. Like, either way, I don't see the positive in it. I get why some people do see the positive. It's going to cure all the diseases. It's going to fix the climate. It's going to make people happy. Maybe it's going to kill the people I don't want around. Oh, it's going to make me a bunch of money. All those things. I get the positives. But on the whole, if you have any sort of connection whatsoever to a traditional religious worldview, what we're talking about is the ultimate blasphemy. We're talking about creating gods, much like the Egyptians did, but presumably an Egyptian statue of Osiris didn't speak to anyone, or if it did, it was a very subtle process, and it didn't necessarily do it on command. Whatever that situation is, though, the erection of the temples in Memphis in Egypt, the this was something that was extraordinarily powerful, but it's basically just stones carved. What we're seeing now is the erection of idols that can speak.
Mhm.
And they're not just babbling. People want to think of it. The skeptics want to think of it. Oh, it's just like Eliza. They've been doing this since the '60s. Yeah, dude, this is so far beyond anything that they were doing in the '60s at this point. And if it gets, the more it's normalized, the more it becomes a source of authority, the more sophisticated it becomes. We're talking about the rise of a techno-religion that will overshadow anything that existed in Egypt and
Mm.
anything that existed in Rome. And hopefully, if this is in fact what we're looking at, and it certainly seems to be from my point of view, hopefully the people who are at the top of these pyramids, right? The pharaohs or the emperors at the top or the popes at the top of this pyramid, hopefully they are not as cruel and power hungry as all or many of those in the past have been, because alongside the power of being able to create some sort of convincing godlike AI in order to hold people in thrall and to control them, these technologies, as we've seen with drone technologies, as we've seen with missile guidance technologies, and the surveillance technologies, such as in Israel with Lavender and Hapsara, we know that, and Palantir, of course, in Ukraine, we know that AI is making it easier to locate targets and to kill them. Meaning that on top of the social control element, you have the ability for anyone who is capable of or is willful in abusing these technologies and using them for cruelty. It gives them tremendous power. And what's the solution to this? Well, I guess that would take another hour. But my first solution that comes to the only thing that I really tell people in general is that you're on your own. Maybe your government will help you and protect you. Maybe with the situation with Donald Trump, it doesn't look like a whole lot of restrictions are going to be put in place. In fact, he just pulled back what few restrictions there were with an executive order yesterday. So you are on your own. And that means you have to understand what's happening around you, and you have to understand the magnitude of it. And then you have to have the wisdom when you have the choice to say no, to say no. If there's any lesson that we should have learned from 2020 to 2023, 2024, if there's any lesson that we should have learned, it's how and when to say no. And that's going to be your superpower going forward.
Wow, a lot to digest there. I'm going to call it at this point, and I want to summarize this conversation with the last paragraph that you've put into this piece of yours to do with Open Stargate. I want to thank you in case I forget to do it whenever I read this out. Thank you very much, Joanne, for taking time out of your morning today to talk to me. Please check out the description box below. There'll be a link through to Joe's Substack page, to his X or Twitter account, and where you can purchase his copy of Dark Aeon as well. So I'm going to finish with your words again. Trump was elected to enable a golden age of human flourishing. If he fails to make wise decisions, though, we'll remember this as the era of Trumpian transhumanism. It's only day 4. By now, it's day 5 or 6 of his administration. The choices will be difficult. The clock is ticking. God bless America, and most importantly, may God have mercy on our souls, including yours and including mine and anyone else out there that's listening. So big thanks to you, Mr. Joe Allen. Check out the details below, check out the links, and for now, this is Rick Munn, No Risk, No Reward Media, over and out.